Yo, this hot, this the spot, there it is, pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and life to stream right to you, from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to the There It Is podcast, a comedy podcast to help you find your inspiration. I'm your host, Jason Farr. Let's do this. Thanks so much for joining us today. I have an excellent conversation with today's guest, and she was a great get. We have producer and director Ryan Cunningham on, and you know what? Saying producer and director just doesn't feel sufficient. Ryan has done so much. She's produced, executive produced, or did post-production on a ton of things you've seen for the better part of the last 20 years, like Inside Amy Schumer, At Home with Amy Sedaris, Human Giant, Broad City, a slew of stand-up specials. She's also directed stage shows and directed and produced the film Lone Wolves, which will come out in the not-too-distant future next Sunday, AD? Okay, not that soon. She has a wealth of knowledge, and she shares that knowledge in a 12-week course at Gold Comedy. Shout out Lynn Harris. The name of the course is Develop and Build Your Pitch. The next one starts on December 1st, next Monday, AD. So there's still time for you to sign up for that course. In that course, you will learn how to take any idea you've been hoping to make one day, a show, film, podcast, and learn how to develop and pitch it to producers. It's crucial info for those of us who have had ideas but have had no idea how to make them real. So sign up for that course. You can use the There It Is links that are in the description. There are 4 different options for you, okay? You can buy it all at once, but there are also 2, 3, and 4 payment plan options. So you have options. Ryan talks a little about the course in our convo, as well as the work she's been doing and you've been seeing for so long. It is such a great talk. She is a delight. Here's my chat with Ryan Cunningham. I have heard about you through Lynn Harris, previous guest, friend of the podcast, Lynn Harris, and was familiar because of my awareness of Gold Comedy. I was aware of you, but I have been aware of your work for decades now at this point. You've done so much stuff. So it's great to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I know that you have a BFA in film from the Rhode Island School of Design.
Yes.
You grew up in Pennsylvania, is that correct?
Yes.
And so what led you to get to go in that direction in college?
So I grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up in like the Allentown, Bethlehem area, and then I went to high school in central Pennsylvania outside of Harrisburg.
Is that Sheets country or Wawa country?
I moved from Wawa country in Allentown, Bethlehem to Sheets country in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. And I will tell you, it was jarring. It is a thing. Yeah. I remember moving there and being like, what is this Sheets? What? Yeah. Anyway, where's the Wawa? Yeah. I mean, my mother has been telling me that I was going to do something in film since I was like 4 years old. I think she thought I was going to be a film critic because I was very intent on being a writer for a long time as a child. But she kept saying that I was going to do that. And, you know, you never want your mother to be right. But I have just been utterly obsessed with film, like my whole life. And I had, a couple films really sort of inspired me to take the next step. I think I always thought I was going to be in the arts somehow, with visual arts, painting, illustration. industrial design, or I even talked about fashion or textiles for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And I got really into photography in high school, and my mom was kind of like, well, you know what the next step is? And I was like, no, mom, no. And then I saw two films right after I graduated high school. I went to go see Errol Morris's Fast, Cheap, and Out of Control, which is this really incredible documentary about a mole rat expert, a topiary gardener, a lion tamer, and an MIT robot scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And it somehow makes this incredibly profound statement about humanity. But it was so creative and interesting and just unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And I literally walked out of the theater and said, that's what I want to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I called my mother, and the next day she was like, I'm writing this down on my calendar the day I was right. And then I watched the movie Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which I had just rented. I mean, it had come out like 7 years before,
Mm-hmm.
but I was really taken with that film. And I remember watching it. It was kind of late at night. It was like after work. And I worked in a coffee shop. After I finished watching it, I immediately rewound it and watched it again. And I don't
Wow.
think I had ever done that before.
I never saw that movie, so I think I have to watch it now.
I just really love it and admire it. And it
Yeah.
was a film that I thought about a lot when I was making my first film.
Oh, amazing. Okay. So, because
Yeah.
I remember when it came out, and I just never, even though people were talking about it so much, I just never checked it out at any point. I mean, sex, no problem with that. Videotape, fine as well. But the lies,
Yeah.
the
The
lies I
lies,
can't
the
handle.
lies. I think it's also the lies we tell ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Which maybe the lie is that I didn't have interest in that movie. Deep down, I did. I would be interested in that movie.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. So before that, were you doing home videos and like directing the
Not
family
not
dog and
really.
stuff?
I no, I mean I was photographing a lot.
Ah,
I've always been like my family's photographer, but not no, I never had a video camera. I mean, I think we borrowed one in ninth grade, and I sort of spearheaded everyone doing this project on vampires. We made this sort of like semi-documentary, semi-scripted project for our gifted class on vampires because I was really obsessed with vampires in ninth grade. Yeah. But I think, it's interesting that I ended up in comedy because I think I always took myself way too seriously growing up. And, and I thought I was going to be like a documentary filmmaker, or
Mhm,
something like
mhm.
very deep and profound. And, and I think when I very accidentally fell into comedy.
Yeah.
And
What spurred it on?
well, it's interesting. So I went to Rhode Island School of Design to RISD.
Mhm.
I was a, film animation video major. And when I was there, I was like, I'm going to be a documentary filmmaker. And
Then you ended up at
I moved
MTV.
to I moved to New York. Well, yeah, I moved to New York and I worked for a series of independent documentary filmmakers
Mhm.
in New York and just sort of realized that the the level of sort of constant support that you need and like begging for money and things like that
Oh, yeah, yeah.
was just not really like a lifestyle that I realized that I wanted to live.
Mhm.
So I started working in TV and I started working in documentary TV and then some reality because it was New York in the early aughts and that
Right.
was
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
what was here. And I ended up doing a series of shows at MTV for about 3 years.
Including Human Giant for the comedy
Yes.
nerds out there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. So, all the shows I did were sort of like reality documentary. And then, kind of at the end of that run, they had greenlit a sketch comedy show again at MTV, and which they hadn't done since the 90s with the state, which was
Right.
very near and dear to my heart in high
Oh,
school. It was
wonderful.
very important to me. And, I had just developed a good reputation with MTV and was offered the job. And I was like, well, I've never done comedy and I've never done scripted, and we'll see how this goes. And I ended up just completely falling in love with it in a way that was really surprising to me.
Wow.
And I think that comedy is the ultimate puzzle, and I love puzzles of all kinds. And I think it's so fascinating to me how much intricate work goes into making something look effortless.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the goal, that you just don't see the seams at all. Like, you don't see the puzzle pieces, you just see this like finished thing. And how much, just like 5 frames of an edit, or changing one line in a script, or emphasis on one word in a performance, is like the difference between whether or not a joke lands. And that just really kind of excites my ADHD brain, which loves puzzles and games of all kinds. And so, I mean, in documentary, it's a much sort of, you're taking this like very large topic and you're sort of trying to like corral it down into something. And I think with comedy, it's like you're working on a much more micro scale, but it still has the same, it's like something where you just make the slightest changes and it's just all the difference in the world.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that is the tough part. And I think sometimes people can see those seams when somebody is not like they're not super advanced yet in the world, maybe of comedy, but they're not bad by any means. Like, they're good enough to get real work, but when you see those seams, that's when you kind of realize, oh, wait, these great people that I love, it's not that it comes easy like they make it look. It's that they know how to craft it and hide those.
Exactly. I mean, when I've worked with so many stand-ups, and when you're putting together, when you see what you see of a final comedy special is so crafted to look so natural, and by the time you record a special, they've done the hour like at least 100 times, and they have tried out every possible iteration of how to say this joke, and have figured out, oh, and if I make just the slightest noise here and then toss my hand up, like that will get an additional joke, like at this certain timing. And stand up is all about trying those different things and recording them and watching them back and figuring out what is the best, like what are all of the puzzle pieces that fit together perfectly to deliver this, and then how do I do it in the most natural way so it sounds like it's something that just
came off the top of your head. Yeah, that is the magic of stand-up.
Yeah, but like any of the big greats, if you would go see them when they were just starting to work out the material in like a little tiny club, then you'd see the seams. It's just that by the time you get to the end, it's seamless.
Yeah, it is an amazing thing, like especially juxtaposed with improv, where stand-up looks like, oh, this is someone talking off the top of their head, just saying whatever. And improv, that is making it up on the spot, is made to look like it was scripted. Like that's the sort of magic of that.
True, actually. Yeah.
It was, as someone who's done both, it was always interesting when there were people who were like coming up after a stand-up show and thinking like, oh, it's great how you do that off the top of your head, and then it was like, no, I've been doing this joke for a few years. And then the people after an improv show are saying, and are you sure you all didn't plan any of that? It's like,
yeah
no, we didn't plan it. We had no idea what we were about to say before we said something. It's an amazing thing about both art forms, truly.
Yeah. You get the opposite reaction.
Yeah. Some of the stuff that you've worked on, and you've worked on so much that I can't name it all, but you've worked with Amy Schumer on many things. I mentioned Human Giant. You were on Broad City, Delocated, again, comedy nerds. This is the stuff that you love. the characters also At Home with Amy Sedaris.
I did the first season of that. Yeah.
I got an Amy Sedaris postcard here.
Awesome.
I love her. She's one of my idols.
She's a genius.
Yeah, incredible. And I don't think gets enough credit for, I mean, she gets plenty of love, but I feel like, she should be one of the first things that comes to people's minds when they think about
Can
comedy.
I tell you a quick story about her?
Please.
It involves Louis C.K., but I was working on his show, Horace and Pete, and she's in the final scene of that show in the final episode. And Louis had never worked with her before. And she came in and he kind of walked through how everything was going to go. And he had this script that was very sort of bare bones in this conversation. And she came out on take one and just completely sort of almost threw the script away. Like she still sort of hit the main points, but she just completely improvised this whole thing and like was telling all these stories about her character and everything. And you could just see on his face that he was like, oh, what is happening? Like, this is what she's so amazing. And so he said, cut. And then he gave her a few notes. And then she came back and she did it completely differently. Completely differently. And he was just kind of like, and I think it really worked for the character that he was sort of so dumbfounded by her, because that's really how his character was reacting to her. And he was like, okay, cut. And he gave her a couple notes, and then she came out and she did it completely differently. And every single take was just like absolutely brilliant, but just so different. And on the last one, she took one of the props and she ripped it up. That was the take that they went with. Yeah. But it was just like, it was this truly magical moment where everybody was just like, what just happened? Like, yeah, it was crazy.
I had to meet her once and tell her that I think she's great. And so that's always nice when you get to tell someone that you really admire that, because at this point, I don't get to do that as often. They keep passing away. Prince, Val Kilmer. Like, I didn't get to tell them how much they meant to me, and that sucks. But I'll get to tell Conan. I'm manifesting. I'll get to tell Conan that.
Real Genius was a really important movie to me.
It's my all-time favorite movie, to be honest.
Really? Oh my God. Can we talk about it for a second? Because it's the best. Also, Martha Coolidge, who directed it, went to RISD.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I did get to tell her that was my favorite movie on Twitter, and she liked it. So she saw the tweet.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got to.
Yeah. I remember one of the things that I liked was that she wanted all of the science and math in it to be actual, to be real.
Yeah.
And so that there wasn't anyone being like, whatever,
Right. Yeah, she didn't want it to be like the 80s screwball nerd comedies that were out, that were just like goofy and honestly problematic.
And just like making fun of nerds. Yeah.
Right, making fun of nerds, whereas like I want them to seem like real people. And that's the credit that it got at that time from critics.
Yeah.
Like, these seem like fully fleshed out characters with a real heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has like the best ending ever.
Yes, it does, with the great song. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've watched that movie hundreds of times. I don't know exactly how many. I wish I was counting, but I've
definitely seen it like at least 30. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love that movie too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now you're a new best friend of mine. So you've been a producer, a co-producer, worked in post-production, on a ton of things that, comedy pieces. But the thing is, it's not even just like one kind of comedy. It's TV series, there's miniseries, there's specials, they're comedy specials,
animation, and
so many different things. And of course, within that, different things, because characters is character pieces and kind of, I guess, sketch. And then you were on Inside Amy Schumer, which is a sketch show. So you have just a wealth of knowledge of comedy from all these different aspects. How did you obviously liked comedies when you were growing up, but since your focus was more like, I'm going to be a documentarian, how did you grow your comedy brain, or was it one of those things where you learn on the job?
You definitely learn on the job, but I think I just hadn't realized what an appreciator of comedy I was. I
Hmm.
think because I really hate hack comedy. And so, I was always like, ugh, well, that was terrible. But when things are good, in comedy, I would like worship them, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I used to obsessively watch stand up when I was like 8, 9,
Me
10 years
too.
old. Like Evening at the Improv
Yes.
was like my favorite, and
Yeah, and
I
Comedy
had to watch
Central.
it like every day. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
when they were
Um
just showing stand up back in the like
yeah,
30 years ago,
exactly.
35 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I hadn't realized how much I had just so completely like absorbed it into my being. And I just, maybe because I don't really consider myself like a funny person, I was never like the class clown. I was always really kind of quiet. Because of that, I think it just never occurred to me that like comedy was even like an option or whatever, and it was truly like, oh wow, this is like really great. And then, after I did Human Giant, I went and I did the Electric Company at Sesame Workshop for PBS Kids, and that was just like the best job ever. I
Yeah.
mean, I
That's
won
got to
that
be a
Emmy,
magical,
like,
yeah.
yeah. And it was, we got to work with music and with sketch and with animation and stand up and, like all these sort of different types of comedy and formats. And then, you know, it was also like we were teaching kids how to read. And, and it was just like, how do we make this as funny as possible so that kids really retain it? Because, comedy has that amazing ability. When
Yeah.
you're laughing, it's like it disarms you, you become vulnerable, and your heart opens up and your brain opens up, and you can take things in more. And so that was incredibly great. I did that for 4 years, and that really, redeemed my soul. I think from, anything that it had lost during years of reality TV. Yeah. And from there, so I started a post-production house after the first season of The Electric Company. It's called Running Man. It's still running in the city.
Yeah.
And with that, after The Electric Company, we also were just like very on top of technology and all the changing technology with like HD and 1080 to 4K and or UHD, and just all that sort of the sort of aughts to early 2010s was just like this very, and I was very on top of like how to do all of those things. And
Hmm.
so because of that, I think it gave me a lot of opportunities. And then when I started the Post House, which was really inspired by our showrunner on The Electric Company, Karen Fowler, who just thought I seemed to be very opinionated as to how post houses should be run, and would I ever consider starting one, and if so, they would bring the next season to me. And I was like, no, I'd never thought of starting a post house. And then I was like, oh wait, does this make sense? So I started Running Man with Troy Thompson, and then I realized that I was going to sort of be positioning myself as a producer for hire, where if you hire me, you also have to hire my company.
Mm.
You also have to work with my company. And, I was a bit nervous about that at first, but it was actually like a huge asset. And it was also very helpful because, later on, a lot of these shows started where the first season of this one is here, and then we have 2 weeks off, and then the first season of this one is here. And then as like things started getting picked up for second, third, fourth seasons, and a lot of schedules started to really overlap. And so it was really useful for me, if I wasn't on set or in the production office, to just be at Running Man and have all of my projects under one roof and be able to just sort of like go edit room to edit room between shows. I've also
Yeah.
been I kind of started out as an editor,
Hmm.
and then I sort of realized that just kind of looking at screens all day and not talking to people wasn't using a lot of my skill set. And so I started like post supervising and then producing. But I've always understood post in a way that a lot of people do not, especially in production. And so that I think was also a really huge advantage to my career.
Oh, amazing.
That I sort of understood how to do visual effects and, different styles of editing and stuff. And I have a good instinct and sense of comedic timing in editing.
Oh, great. So. Okay. Yeah. I mean, editing that can make or break stuff sometimes, right? I've heard stories of some movie that when they were filming it, they were getting good stuff, but then the edit did not do it any favors and the movie didn't do well,
Happens a lot.
Yeah, I bet it does. So there's producing and executive producing and post-production work. Can you illuminate for people the difference between those different kinds of production roles?
Sure. So I think, when you are executive producing, co-executive producing, you just get a bit more of a creative say in things. You get to be in all of the creative meetings and, weigh in on cuts and, you're part of like the leadership team for the show. And, producing can mean, you're line producing the whole project, or it can mean that you are the lead producer overseeing a team of other producers and you're seeing stuff through pre-production, production and post-production, or just post-production, or it can kind of mean a lot of different things. But really it's like the director has the vision, but it's the producer's job to actually make it happen, I think, is how I've always sort of thought it. And then I started directing about 7 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you get in that because there were certain stories you wanted to tell, or was it the sort of new mountain to conquer?
A little bit of both. I think I had kind of realized that I had become a producer for hire, and I wanted to be more in on the ground floor on projects and helping to develop and bring up projects and voices that I wanted to see and hear that I felt like were missing. I think I realized I was feeling very frustrated with things that were getting greenlit around the late 20 teens. And everything just felt like a reiteration of something that we had already seen. And it just was feeling like we were losing a sense of originality. And I realized that I needed to be in on the ground floor of like picking and finding and writing those stories that I wanted to see and actually developing them and elevating them so that they could go to market and they could get greenlit. And, and part of that is also directing. I went to film school and I was like, why have I only relegated myself to a producer position? Like, I know what I'm doing. And, and sometimes I would be a bit frustrated by what I was seeing from other directors, just, from looking at dailies and things. And so, and I just felt like I could, I could do this. Like, why am I not doing this? Why am I not stepping up? I remember also reading this interview with Greta Gerwig. I guess it was around the time that Lady Bird had come out. And she said something in the interview, like, I realized that if I didn't actually do the thing, if I didn't actually direct, that I would be letting down these generations of women who worked so hard to see me get there and, who taught me and laid the groundwork. And that felt like a giant kick in the ass to me when I read that sentence. I was like, oh, what? And that really started making me reconsider things. And then Amy Schumer and Alana Glazer gave me really great opportunities.
Yeah. You worked with both of them a number of times.
Yeah. And so they gave me my first directing opportunities, and then I kind of jumped off from there. Yeah.
And not only so you did direct a film that came out this year called Lone Wolves.
It hasn't been released yet. It's going to be released early next year.
Ah, okay. Okay.
On a major streamer that hopefully I can announce publicly very soon.
Okay.
But extremely excited about it. It's called Lone Wolves. It's a comedy. It has a lot of heart. It talks about neurodivergence.
Which is an important topic to you.
Very important
Yeah.
topic to me.
Yeah. Didn't you do
I
a
gave a TED talk on it.
Yeah, TED
I
talk on
did.
how it's gonna
Yes.
be, how it's like good for the future of comedy.
I think it is. Yeah. I think, if we're going to have any innovation or interest I think just looking at the world through a neurodivergent lens gives a different perspective that we may not have seen or thought of.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to be innovative and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter's on the spectrum and I have ADHD, and I've worked with a lot of autistic and ADHD and dyslexic and OCD and other neurodivergencies. And I just think it's vitally important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so with Lone Wolves, it was co-written by and co-starring Matt Foss, who is autistic and dyslexic. I love him and I love his writing, and I think he's so incredibly brilliant. And I'm so, so proud of the performance that he and Cora Vanderbrook, who is our other co-star and co-writer, I'm so proud of the performances that we got from them. Matt especially, like, he had never acted on camera before. But what had happened was, as when we were writing, I was like reading a lot of drafts and giving them notes, and and we just got to the point where I just felt like I think we need to call out the fact that he's autistic. That's not what this story is about, but I think his behavior is just so odd that if we don't call it out, then he's just like this quirky weirdo. But if we call it out and just name what it is, I think that then people will start to understand, like, oh, that's another way that autism presents itself, because it presents itself in so many different ways.
So many different ways.
And for people to actually see that and maybe recognize it in themselves or in others around them, and then it just is going to increase awareness and understanding.
Right.
And
it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. And that was incredibly important to me, that we actually call it out. And it's just a tiny little moment in the movie. It's not at all what the movie is about, but I wanted to name it. And then once we did that, we were just like, well, we have to cast this role authentically. And, I really wanted Matt to do it. He had done a bunch of the read-throughs, and he just is so marvelous. And he's just honestly one of the most endearing people I've ever met. Like, you talk to him and you feel your heart like radiating out for him. And I hope that this really gets him and Cora the work that they've deserved. But I do want to say also, I do think that having worked in post-production for so long and editing and really understanding editing made me such a better director when I became a director versus if I had just become a director out of film school. And I think it's something that people don't realize, but I am able to like edit a scene in my head as we're going. So I know exactly when I have what I need and I can move on.
Yes.
And I don't have to get like, cover it and, 20 angles, because I know what angle I'm using for every line, and I know if I got it in that angle. So yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm picking up from what you're saying, and what I also know you've worked on, is there seems to be a lot of heart into what you put into the work you're doing, because it seems like you're really giving people a voice or giving them tools that allow them to speak for themselves. And that, I think that's huge. Is that part of it for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I also just really like, if you have the opportunity to actually say something and kind of try to change things, not in a way that is like really blatant and obvious and like whacking you over the head with it, but just, subtly. I don't know why you wouldn't do that.
Right.
It's like, otherwise, like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we all need to laugh right now, but we all need to like face a lot of things right now.
True, yeah.
And if I can make you laugh while you do that, I've directed a lot of theater over the last 3 years. That's been an
Yeah, I
interesting
was
thing
actually
that kind
just
of.
about to mention, yeah, because two former guests, two friends of the podcast, Kelly Bachman, you just
We just
directed
filmed her
her,
special. It's
yeah,
amazing.
and Chanel Ali back in
Also a
September.
neurodivergent. Kelly's also a neurodivergent comedian.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
You will see her talk about that in her special.
Oh, she's excellent. I am so happy for her. And Chanel had the show at Soho Playhouse, and that's also so great. Two very talented
Yeah. Have you
people.
ever talked to Sam Morrison as well?
No.
I did his Sugar Daddy. That was my first off-Broadway play.
Oh, yes, that is. I did read that when I was researching you. Yeah, you're giving so much to people with your work because you're like directing stage shows. And I didn't that come because of the like partly because of the strike, or was it?
What's funny is Sugar Daddy came to me at the very beginning of 2023.
Yeah,
And I got that job and I was like, well, this will be interesting. Like, I haven't done theater, but I've done stand up and I've done, so many other things.
right.
And it was incredibly fun and incredibly exciting to figure out, like, how do we actually make this theatrical? How do we make this not just him like standing there in the middle of the stage talking? And it felt like a really fun challenge. The other thing I really like about theater is that, I'm really used to working on things and then not having anyone actually see them for like 6 months to a year,
Right.
sometimes several years. And then maybe I will have the opportunity to watch it at a screening, like with an audience, like once, and hear their reaction. But otherwise, it just kind of goes out into the ether. And with theater, you can sit in the audience every single night and you can make any change you want and you can see if it works the next night. And you get like,
that's great.
it's just this immediate
Right.
feedback loop that is really interesting and fun to sort of like build and change. And it's very much like stand up, in that way. But yeah, it's been very fun. And then, so I had directed Sugar Daddy. It was a huge hit. I got held over for like 9 weeks, and we had a sold out run in London, and picked up a producer to take it further. And it's going to be opening off West End in next year.
That's great.
So I got a lot from that, and it was very successful. And so then I left, right, like 2 months after we'd been running that for about 2 months. I left. I went and I directed Lone Wolves. I came back from Toledo because I did that in Toledo, Ohio. I came back, and then the writer strike happened, and my managers were like, well, you can work in theater. And so I started working on a lot of theater pieces, some plays and like one musical, but mostly a lot of solo shows. And that has been really fun and like such a fun challenge. And I've also really gotten to like a good like dramaturgy level where I'm oftentimes working with them while they're writing and helping to build it out and shape it. And we really spend a lot of time with the script before we even start rehearsing. And that has just it's also just made me a sharper writer and everything. So
does seeing so much comedy make it harder to enjoy watching comedy when you sit down to watch something?
I mean, I think there is a certain level of that I feel when I watch anything on film or television that I see like beyond the frame, and I see the editing choices, and I see, when I don't notice those things, that's when I know something is great.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's been times where, like I'll be watching something with an like an ex-girlfriend, and I'll like sigh really loudly, and they'll be like, what? And I'm like, do you want me to ruin this for you? Or do you want to just stay blissful and like just keep watching it? And yeah.
Yeah. No, I've heard
Because I
musicians talk
see
about stuff
everything.
like
I
that with
see,
mixing. Yeah.
the effects, mistakes, and sound mix. I hear
The
ADR all the
cuts.
time. And
Oh, wow. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I've heard
Um,
musicians talk about listening to like classic albums that everyone loves and being like, yeah, the mix was kind of weird. Why are the drums so high? Like, this is the thing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, oh, wow, I never noticed that about that song, but you're right. So now you can't unhear it. Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah, yeah, and but I think ultimately with comedy, like I'm shockingly unjaded.
Yeah.
I still just get absolute delight from watching things, and even sometimes it's from people I've directed.
Mhm.
I will have a show that I've easily seen 50 times in, rehearsals or whatever, but then like I'll go to this one show and just feel like the performer just popped and just exploded and just became like a different person. And I think it's feeding off of the audience too,
Mhm.
and watching what that does and how that changes a performance has been really fascinating to me.
Oh, yeah. That is a cool thing because you get to see it in those different elements. So it does, because when I've worked on things, particularly things that I shot myself and then like edited, like home video type goofy stuff that I did in college or whatever, when I was editing it, it was like one brain was on because I was looking for the edits that I needed to make and how I wanted it to be. But when I sat down to watch it with friends, then I was just like watching something and just I could enjoy it then. But it was during the
Yeah,
process where I'm like, no, I need to shave like cut this back a little bit.
yeah,
I need to, yeah. No, it's an
yeah.
interesting
Well,
thing.
you stop being able to see it, and you oftentimes can't see it unless there's someone new watching it with you.
Right. Yeah.
Because
Taught it.
yes, like watching with their experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Another way that you are equipping people is you teach a building and pitching ideas class with Gold Comedy. You've taught it
Yes.
before. You've got one coming up on December 1st that people can sign up for. I imagine you'll
Yeah, this is
do it
actually going to
again.
be the 13th time that I've taught
Yeah.
it with Gold Comedy. And I taught it 4 or 5 times at RISD before that. I
Okay.
actually created the class for RISD in 2020 when they started allowing remote teaching.
Oh, amazing.
And I was like, hey, that class that I've been talking to you about for so long that you should create? Well, how about I just do it? If I don't have to travel to Providence once a week, if I can just do it over Zoom. And they were very excited about that. And so I developed this whole syllabus, and I got to teach it, and it was just so thrilling and fun because I felt like it was sort of a missing piece. I
Hmm.
think it's a missing piece in a lot of film school education. It's like, yes, you know how to make the thing, but first you have to sell it. And that's how like anything gets made.
Yeah.
um, and so how do you actually do this? And the class really came out of, around 2018, 2019, when I decided to sort of shift over into like directing and development. I realized with development that I kind of had no idea what I was doing. And I was
Oh,
trying to find more information about it. There's like just not very, I mean, I feel like there is maybe in like the last few years, but at the time there just wasn't very much you could find out there about it,
mhm.
about like how to sell a show. So I just took everyone that I had worked with over the years to coffee or lunch, or just had stole whatever conversations I could with them to pick their brains of just like how they did it. And even then everybody was like, well, I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but like this is how I did it. But
Yeah.
everyone had sort of like stumbled through it. And it
Right.
was just like a very much like trial and error. And so what I found that I had done was kind of synthesized all of that information, that data that I had collected, and used it to pitch and sell my own projects, but then also was able to synthesize it into this class. And then I became a trustee for RISD. And when I became a trustee on the board, I couldn't teach anymore because it's a conflict of interest. But I was able to get the class, permanently added to RISD's film department's curriculum. And I got them also to hire the only person that I trusted to teach it, who's Bethany Hall, who's a person you should talk to. She's absolutely brilliant comedian and writer and actress. And then Lynn Harris reached out to me and said, would you ever be interested in teaching a class for Gold Comedy? And I was like, well, I do have this 12-week syllabus. And we started talking about it, and it's turned into this really huge success with Gold. And it's been really incredible. And I think it's been honestly very much of a gift to me. I think that it keeps me really sharp, and I am able to give notes very succinctly and specifically, which is also very much like the art of critique training from Rhode Island School of Design. And it just keeps me sharp, but it also just like really kind of feeds my soul because it's very interesting teaching it at Gold Comedy versus in school, in college. And I love my art students. I love my RISD kids. But I think oftentimes when you're trying to develop like a TV show, they're all like 20, 21, and they just don't have as much life experience. Whereas the students at Gold Comedy range in age from like 25 to 65. And it's a really broad, it's largely women, but also non-binary. And we let some guys in if they're just not broy vibes.
Right.
And
Lynn told us that too.
But I've had quite a few guys take my class too.
Right.
But most everyone that is coming to the class is often really experienced in and like really high up in like another field, but they just have this like one story that is like sitting on their heart to tell, and they don't know how to just like get it out onto paper in a way that makes sense and makes it appealing and helps you sell it. And I think it's also about how to get it out in a way that is organized and clear. And I have kind of figured out this formula of how to do that. And I've had a lot of people, I've had a lot of successes out of the class. Like last year at Series Fest, which is kind of like the Sundance of TV, their pitchathon, 50% of the people that they accepted into their pitchathon were my students.
Ooh.
And same thing, the Catalyst pitching competition a few years ago, I had 2 finalists from my class. I've had award-winning web series come out of the class that were developed in the class. I've had a student develop a show and then continue in the writers' workshops that I offer after to develop the pilot script and then get it actually picked up to be made as a proof of concept. And now it's like starting, the whole festival run and sending it out to sell it. I've had people get management. I've had solo shows performed that were developed in the class. I mean, I think the thing that I like to say is it's develop and pitch any idea. So that includes, a lot of the people who take the class are oftentimes doing like a film or a television show, but a lot of people do other things too. You can do a solo show, you can do a theater show, you can do a variety show, you can do theater, film, television. I've had novelists take the class and develop their novels, or develop a way, maybe the novel's already written and they're in the rewrite process, but they're trying to figure out how to actually like pitch it. And then also maybe like pitch it for future film rights, things like that. And so I've also had people come in and develop businesses and pitch their business. So I think that there's a lot of different ways that this framework can be applied across a lot of different genres and styles.
sign up for this class. It starts on December 1st. It's a 12-week course, correct?
It's 12 weeks. You come out of it with a full pitch document, a pitch deck, a elevator pitch, knowledge of tone reels, and possibly a tone reel yourself if it makes sense for your project, because it doesn't make sense for all, and a 10-minute verbal pitch with visuals.
Excellent.
Yeah. And the final class is I bring in colleagues who are professionals working in the industry who regularly hear pitches. I'm not bringing in like Netflix executives. I'm not like throwing you into the fire immediately, but I'm bringing in people who could, help and will give you genuine, honest, real feedback. And so the final pitching class, I bring in a panel of professionals for everyone to pitch, because I think also the other thing with pitching is like it's nerve inducing, because we haven't seen anyone do it. Like the classic pitches are all done in closed boardrooms. Like
they call it an elevator pitch because it happens in an elevator.
In an elevator. Yeah. It's the duration of an elevator ride. We don't have like that seminal video of Steven Spielberg's pitch for Jaws, like we just don't have like examples like that. And so I think there's just like a lot of this like great unknown. And I think if you can just sort of rip the Band-Aid off, and every time you pitch, it gets easier. So I'm giving you the opportunity to get that first one out of the way, and so that you can realize, oh, hey, I can do this. Totally. Yeah.
Well, sounds like something for me to take one day. I really would like to.
I would love to have you. Yeah.
I'd love to talk to you more, but we're at the end of the episode. It's time to create something together. And one thing I know you've talked about is that actors should learn to take, maybe you didn't word it quite this way, but it's like actors should learn to take critiques because it'll only benefit them. So for people who are creatives or actors or stand-ups who are trying to get booked somewhere or get passed at a club, I've seen people not take critiques very well in those settings. I'm wondering what advice you have for people on how to take that criticism better.
So I will say, I was in like a committee meeting for RISD today, and I was even expounding on this. I think one of the best things I got out of my education, and it's something that often comes with art school educations, but it's very at the soul of RISD's education, is the ability to critique, the ability to look at something and to understand, look at it objectively and understand what is working and what is not, and to make suggestions of how to improve what is not working. And at the same time, to receive that feedback and to understand how to take notes, and to understand that it's not about your ego and it's not an insult, and that it's actually someone trying to help you. And I think also you have to very much pick and choose who you choose to get feedback from. But I think you can also, I think it's really important to always understand what is the note behind the note. What, like, okay, so they're saying this and that this is bothering them, and they're suggesting to do this thing to fix it, which I think is absurd. But what's at the heart of that note? That what is the thing that was bothering them? Can I look at it with new eyes myself and say, okay, I maybe see how that could bother, where, and what's another way that I can creatively come up with to address this, to smooth it, to, something is bumping somebody. And how to just not take it personally, and how to realize that knowing how to take notes and receive notes and process notes is only going to make your work better. It's only going to make it stronger.
There it is. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was delightful. I loved it. I was introduced to your podcast by Lynn when she was on, but I've listened since, and I greatly enjoyed your conversation with Lynn, but also just the podcast in general. So thank you so much. I think it's good that you're doing this. I think it's good to really break down comedy. Like, let's be comedy nerds together. You know, let's geek out and to say like, why does this work? And like, how do we break it down and analyze it? My brain loves that.
What a great chat. I loved that conversation. I hope you did too, and I hope you learned a lot. Don't forget to sign up for Ryan's Develop and Build Your Pitch course that starts December 1st through Gold Comedy. And we have those links, our links. So there it is, links for that course in the description. Also follow her on Instagram at Ryan E. Cunningham. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at There It Is Pod, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at There It Is. And follow me on Instagram and Threads at Jason Farr Pics. Also subscribe to our comedy lifestyle newsletter and support us if you can. We have a Patreon and a PayPal. Go to thereitispod.com for newsletter and support info. Links in bio. Great episode coming up sooner than you think. Until next time, be good to each other. It's a moral imperative.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.